British scientist James Smithson left his fortune to the United States for increasing and diffusing knowledge, posing a practical question: what institution could fulfill that sweeping promise? Smithson earned scientific respect through chemistry and mineralogy in Europe, yet the institution bearing his name would emerge only after his death, far across the Atlantic. After litigation in Britain's Court of Chancery, Smithson's estate passed to American representatives, who converted it into gold sovereigns and carried its value to Washington. Congress debated whether the bequest should create a university, library, observatory, museum, or practical school, revealing deep disagreement about which knowledge deserved public support. Former President John Quincy Adams persistently defended Smithson's trust from diversion, keeping its public purpose before lawmakers through years of argument and institutional uncertainty. Congressional committees weighed research, publication, collections, and education. Their competing plans showed that accepting the money was easier than deciding how a republic should use it. On August 10, 1846, Congress established the Smithsonian Institution, creating a board of regents and authorizing buildings, collections, research, and public instruction. The new institution combined research, publication, exchange, collections, lectures, and a museum, serving scholars while bringing scientific evidence before the wider public. Surveyors marked a site on the unfinished National Mall. The open ground placed the new institution within Washington's civic landscape, close to Congress but independently administered. Red sandstone walls and Gothic Revival towers rose into the Smithsonian Castle, giving Smithson's abstract bequest a striking headquarters visible across the growing capital. Physicist Joseph Henry became the first secretary. He favored active research and communication, fearing that expensive displays alone would consume funds without increasing knowledge. Henry supported experiments, scholarly publications, and international exchanges. The Smithsonian would not simply hold information, it would help produce, test, circulate, and compare it. Volunteer observers telegraphed coordinated weather measurements. Their reports transformed scattered local conditions into comparative data for a national Smithsonian research network. Government surveys delivered plants, rocks, fossils, animals, and instruments, expanding scientific evidence while increasing obligations to document each object's origin and care. Inside collection rooms, curators arranged specimens in cabinets, recorded them in catalogs, and used instruments to identify relationships hidden within an expanding material archive. Public lectures brought experiments into view, allowing Washington audiences to encounter scientific reasoning as a process rather than simply accepting a finished claim. Museum galleries opened collections to families and visitors. Specimens moved from private study into public interpretation, making observations central to Smithsonian education. Western surveys mapped terrain and collected natural evidence while accompanying United States territorial growth, binding scientific exploration to questions of authority and power. During the Civil War, Washington became a fortified capital. Smithsonian staff continued their work amid soldiers and military traffic, but the castle soon faced its own disaster. In January 1865, fire tore through the castle's upper story, destroying papers, scientific materials, and rooms, and exposing how quickly accumulated knowledge could vanish. Rebuilding meant more than replacing stone and timber. Better storage, catalogs, and care-treated preservation as a public duty owed to researchers and future generations. Specimen boxes and letters circulated among scientists, schools, and museums, extending the Smithsonian beyond Washington through a wider community of shared evidence. Crowded collections increasingly created practical problems over time, preserving millions of objects, retrieving them reliably, and deciding which stories limited exhibition space should tell. Fossil skeletons, minerals, plants, and animals made deep time visible, allowing visitors to examine physical evidence rather than accept scientific conclusions on authority alone. Historical objects transformed ordinary and political material into national memory. Because selection shaped whose lives mattered, every acquisition carried an interpretive choice. Many ethnological collections arose through indigenous dispossession. That history now demands provenance research, consultation, repatriation, and community authority. Art museums added portraiture, sculpture, craft, and expression, widening the Smithsonian's recognition that understanding humanity requires evidence beyond any single discipline. Astrophysical research turned instruments toward sunlight and stars. The Smithsonian's mission could reach from mineral cabinets to cosmic questions while maintaining its emphasis on measurement. Historic aircraft suspended above visitors made engineering visible at full scale, treating technological invention as evidence worthy of preservation and public examination. Across the mall, families and students approach museums devoted to different subjects. Shared public space helps connect specialized collections to one broad national institution. Free admission became a defining practice. Removing a ticket barrier cannot solve every inequality, but it gives physical meaning to knowledge held for public benefit across generations. Multiple museums and research centers now serve different fields under one name. The expanding network grew far beyond the castle while retaining one shared public mission. Conservation laboratories use microscopes, controlled light, and careful records. Preserving material evidence can demand investigation as rigorous as creating an exhibition. Repatriation consultations unite indigenous representatives, curators, and records to return ancestors and cultural items, correct provenance, and shift interpretive authority. Educators turn collections into hands-on lessons for schoolchildren. Public knowledge matters not only when preserved, but when new learners can question, test, and apply it independently. Digitized records and images widen remote access, but digital surrogates cannot erase responsibilities attached to physical objects or their communities of origin. Smithsonian research also reaches tropical field stations, including programs in Panama, where long-term observations track forests, species, and environmental change across decades. Smithson's remains reached Washington in 1904, when Alexander Graham Bell helped transfer them from a threatened Genoa cemetery into a castle crypt near the entrance. Today, museum galleries gather visitors across ages and backgrounds. Their presence realizes part of diffusion. Evidence becomes public only when people can encounter and question it. The Capitol and castle share one civic landscape. Congress created a trust, not a finished answer, allowing the Smithsonian to argue, adapt, and expand across many generations. Modern laboratories, archives, and galleries directly connect ongoing research with public audiences, making the Smithsonian both a museum network and a working system for knowledge. Smithson's phrase remains the test. Knowledge must be examined responsibly, preserved honestly, and diffused widely enough to remain a truly public good rather than private possession.